All right. So in the last video, I had highlighted we're talking about income redistribution, and we highlighted how part of the things we discussed was how society is basically made up of or basically consists of an economic race where every individual is in pursuit of their individual economic well-being, and that in that race to economic prosperity for each individual, some persons will come up tops, other persons might not do too well, and then some persons will fail, flat. And so as a state, the sovereign state has that duty to ensure that, for the purpose of the sustenance of life, that persons falling below the standard order in that economic race, in that economic pursuit, are not left to, die off or become destitute. All right. The state has to come in, intervene, to give them several chances and opportunities to get back on their feet. And some of these measures, many of you are already familiar with, includes provision of loans, agricultural schemes such as fertilizer distribution for those who are involved in agriculture. Ordinarily, many of them, because maybe business has gone bad and things like that, might not be able to afford that fertilizer. So if the government is intervening to make it available, that gives them, a leeway, gives them a boost, an opportunity to improve their fortunes, because they can now use those fertilizers on their crops and then improve their yields. And if all goes well, you see a farmer who is down and who is downtrodden get back on his feet. So income redistribution is one of the roles taxes play in a state. So when citizens pay tax, the government takes some of these funds to intervene in critical sectors where citizens who are not performing too well in the economic ladder are given an opportunity to get back on their feet. So they can intervene in the area of healthcare, all right, by provision and sponsorship of health insurance for citizens, in order to either offer medical treatment for free or bring the cost of medical treatment to its barest minimum. They can even subsidize certain critical drugs needed for treatment and things like that. They can intervene in building markets and offer it to people. They can intervene in educational scholarship and so many things. So taxes help the government to make these interventions, and so that's why we say that income redistribution is one of the roles, very important role that tax plays in the society. Okay, so we have talked about income generation as a role of taxation. Income redistribution is what we just discussed as a second role of taxation. And then the third role of taxation is influence on consumption patterns in a state. All right, taxes help to influence the consumption patterns of citizens in a state, and I'll give you several examples. For instance, if the state or government wants to intervene in consumption of alcohol, for instance, or consumption of cigarettes, or any item at all, if the government increases taxes to be paid, especially consumer taxes, taxes, for instance, like VAT. When you go to any shopping mall or most business centers you enter, you are charged what they call VAT. If you look at your payment receipts or voucher, as the case may be, even in the eateries, if you go to these eateries, you see the VAT. All right, you are paying for it, so it is added to the cost of the item you are buying. So if government wants to discourage consumption of a particular thing, they can increase the taxes on that item. They can increase not only VAT, they can increase the excise duty on it and other things, which the manufacturer, in an attempt to make profit, will transfer that cost to you, the consumer. So for instance, if you are buying a bottle of beer for 500 naira before, and now because of increase in excise duty, VAT and any other thing, that 500 now becomes 1,500 naira for one bottle of beer. It means the tendency, except for those who are wealthy and do not mind, the tendency for the middle income earner and low income earners is to take more of such products. Okay, so if you will take 3 bottles of that product before, because of the increase in price, you might just take only 1, because the price for 1 is what you were using for 3. All right, so you take only 1. Okay, and in reverse, if the government wants to encourage the consumption of a particular item, government can also reduce the taxes on that item, which will now drive more purchase. So if you were buying let's say they decide to intervene in drugs, for instance. I think the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made some concessions in the area of medical supplies, So now, if a drug was costing 5,000 naira before, some of these interventions by the federal government in removing taxes, removing customs duties and excise and some of these items could bring the price from 5,000 to 2,000 or 2,005. Okay, so that will encourage you to buy 2 as against 1. All right, so whichever way, whether increasing taxes to discourage consumption or reducing taxes to encourage consumption, influence on consumption patterns is another key role of taxation in any sovereign state. Okay, so that ends our discussion on chapter 1, which is definition